Harry Potter. Who's Harry Potter?
Oh, no one. Bit of a tosser, really.
Hello and welcome to Series 4 of Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of the two hosts of this flabbergasting podcast.
And I'm Rich and I'm the other host of this flabbergasting podcast. Think of me as Rocky to Dave's Adrian. He's a bookish, sweet pet shop owner and I like to scream his name at the top of my lungs. Dave!
I love
Did it, Dave!
It's good to be back. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, their worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we quite often drift off and just have some chats about movies in general.
And yes, we do drop some spoilers, but we do talk about mostly old films. So if you don't want those films ruined, how about, have you ever heard of Airfix? You know, one of those, make a plane model or a car, only take a few minutes, do that, then come back and listen to the rest of the episode. On today's episode, we are joined by Ethan Lawrence.
Ethan is a brilliant actor and comedian. You might know him as Joe in Bad Education or James in Afterlife, or one of about 450 characters that he plays on Horrible Histories. Ethan is the first guest we've had on this podcast that my son is massively excited about because he's a huge Horrible Histories fan. So this has been great. I've earned some serious dad points.
Amazing. Yeah, we were very excited to sit down with Ethan and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Ethan Lawrence's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy!
Question to warm your mind up, to get the brain working. Do you remember the first sequel you got excited about, or remember the first sequel when you were a child that you got really, really excited about?
I mean, it's going to come up later, I think. It was probably Toy Story 2.
Oh, let's talk about it, because you've got some other options for that as well.
I mean, it was game-changing. So I was born in 92.
Right.
So Toy Story, the first, came out in 95. So I would have been 3/4.
Yeah.
And I loved that film. Like, you know, we had it on VHS. I think I wore it out. And so, like, when the next one came in, I mean, like, you know, I wasn't super aware of, like, sequels and what sequels are and what sequels can do / whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, more? Yes, please. And then, of course, I had to wait 10 years for the next one. But, you know, it whetted my appetite.
All right, so you were still excited for the second one?
I mean, yeah. I mean, so, you know, the second one came and went, and I loved that more than the first one, if anything. And then, I mean, the sort of the beauty and the reason why I put it in the docket is that leaving it that amount of time for 3 to then close it out meant that there was sort of like a kind of, if you forgive the wanky expression, a kind of sort of metatextual edge, in the sense that the people like me who were very young when it came out and were still playing with toys recognised ourselves in Andy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, well, ultimately we were him. Like, you know, we'd grown up and, like, we were adults now and we were trampling children underfoot to get into the cinema. Like, no, this isn't for you. This is my time.
I do that a lot. I'm 41 and I still trample over children to get to, like, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Well, yeah, well, you know, you guys are interested in sequels. I'd be disappointed in anything less, frankly.
I did trample over children to get to see Toy Story 2 as well.
Fair. I may have been one of the children you trampled over.
Probably, because I was about, I think, 15 when that came out.
Right.
Our local town didn't have a cinema, so we dressed up like adults, thinking we looked all pretty cool, and then we thought we'll go and see a movie, and then we got there, and the thing we really wanted to see was a U or a PG, and we're like, we'll go see this instead. So
you're sat there in your tux.
I think I had a leather jacket on.
What a cool dude.
Yeah, what was your first experience of watching it? Do you remember?
I don't think I saw it at the cinema, you know.
Oh, Ethan.
I think it would have been VHS, but again, bought in. I think I was maybe 10 the first time I ever went to a cinema.
Oh,
I think
right,
it's possibly for the same reason as you, because my quote unquote local cinema is like a half-hour drive away, and so it was, you know, it was a whole event. But maybe I did. I'm trying to think back now. I'm reasonably certain I saw Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay.
At the cinema. So that would have been in 2001, so I would have been 9.
Rich is feeling old here.
I feel so old right now.
Well, you know.
So
Age is just a
old.
number, Rich.
I was like 20.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you, my friend. My age is on the Wikipedia. But you knew this was going to happen. Clattering
So
towards
that was your first film experience in the cinema, was it? Or was there something else? What was the one we
by,
seen when we
by
were 10?
memory, I think it must have been. I mean, I'm blanking, essentially. I can't think of anything else, so I'm going to say yes, it was that.
Amazing.
In order to avoid further scrutiny and also avoid further me going blah, 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 blah.
That's what this podcast is all about. That's what we like to do.
We dive into memories, Ethan.
I'm gonna fit in right at home.
What snacks did you have?
Snacks? So that would have been my first experience of popcorn.
This is what I'm saying. What was that like, the whole cinema experience? Were you exciting?
It was hugely exciting, and I don't know if that was a good first film because The Fellowship of the Ring is a fair old whack for a 10-year-old kid to sit still. But I remember being enamoured with the experience, and Lord of the Rings trilogy is still one of my favourite cinematic pieces today.
Yeah.
So it must have had some effect on me. Yeah, and we went to the cinema a lot more after that.
I think everything after that would be a letdown. I think Lord of the Rings
degree,
is pretty
but,
good.
I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed the cinema, and then but then later on, this is from about. So there was a gap in 2018. My career was falling apart.
Great.
And so I had to take on pizza delivery, which vastly cut down my free time, especially because I was working in the evening. So I just sort of stopped going to the cinema.
Wow.
And so that was a midpoint of 2018, and I didn't go back into a theatre, what with one thing and another, until the beginning of this year.
Wow.
To see Jackass Forever.
That's a good sequel.
That was a good sequel.
To be fair, what a great way to come back to the theatre.
Yeah.
You come back in, and it's just a bunch of men older now than they were, but still absolutely willing to humiliate and hurt themselves for our entertainment.
Me and Dave watched it together. There was only us two and about 4 other people in the cinema.
It was,
and we just laughed like small children all the way through it.
Yeah, we are the
just
Jackass
so
generation.
fun.
I would say that is prime for us. That was right in the middle of my teenage years, and we did stupid things like that, or we tried to film stupid stunts, and it went horribly wrong and stuff like that.
I mean, it went horribly wrong for them as well. It's just they were on TV.
It's amazing that they still do it.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of moments where I was sort of like, God, you must be able to do something else now. You don't need to. You don't need to fly yourself out of a cannon while dressed as Icarus anymore.
Or get run over by a bull. And that properly fucked Johnny Knoxville over.
Oh, God. I mean, that was... Because we saw it quite late in its theatrical run.
Yeah.
But the cinema was still pretty full. It was a small screen. This was in London, Leicester Square. And, everyone was laughing, hooting and hollering, great time all throughout. And then that happened. It's quite close to the end of the film. He gets nailed by the bull. And then, the cinema sort of was like,
He's dead.
Oh, we've just watched a man die.
Yeah. Did you know that was the second attempt because the first attempt wasn't funny enough?
Yeah. Sort of wish they'd stuck with the first attempt and maybe hidden it in the middle of the film.
It is a good ending, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, he gets wheeled out of the hospital and he's broken and battered but still smiling. That's what it's heartwarming in a way.
It does make the question of what would you do for money like that? How far would you push it?
Well, I mean, I've been a professional actor for 10 years. I've done some stuff. That made it sound like I'd done something. No, okay, right. I'm going to clarify. Allow me to clarify. So, I did. Oh God! I did a commercial for a French mattress company.
This already sounds dodgy.
It was a French mattress company. The advert was financed, I think, by a Belgian production crew.
Okay.
It was filmed in Scotland with 2 English actors and directed by a Canadian. So my suspicion that there wasn't a single taxable event at any point during the creation of this advert. But the conceit of it was that myself and my co-star were playing 2 scientists,
right,
who were studying materials to try and find sort of the perfect mattress material, which led them to this beautiful Scottish mountainside on the Isle of Skye, surrounded by about 40 sheep. And I tell you what, you haven't lived until you're crawling around in sheep dung on the side of a Scottish mountain, and they have to break filming because there's a storm coming. And then that very night, when you're in the B&B, like having had a couple of drams of whiskey, and then Donald Trump gets elected as the president of the United States of America. It was a week.
Did you get a free mattress at all? Discount?
No. I don't think they sell over here. The advert actually doesn't. I've been trying to find it for ages because it was on YouTube for a while. But I think what happened was, they don't pay for the buyout for another year, so that it was on their channel, so they took it down. And I have no idea how to find it now.
In my head, it's brilliant.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think keeping it in your head is probably the best way, because you're picturing that, whereas instead it's sort of like a kind of sort of slickly edited thing with a French voiceover. I have no idea what they're saying.
Could be.
Maybe it'll crop up when you win a BAFTA or something.
Oh, that was And in the early years, things were harder.
So, what is your best sequel? You gave us a few options that we can talk about. Toy Story 2 and why you love that. I've just taken the words out of your mouth. So, was Toy Story 2?
We can start there because we've touched on it.
Cool.
So, yeah, I mean, Toy Story, I think, exists as kind of like a perfect trilogy to me. We'll ignore the fourth one. Because I mean, not because it's a bad film. It isn't. It's good, but just because it makes a perfect trilogy into a good tetralogy.
Right.
The initial three, I think, are absolutely perfect. Again, I think it ties into... It came out at exactly the right time for people of my generation, sort of late-stage millennials. Because, as I say, it has this sort of meta-narrative going on where we are physically aging alongside Andy. And in the sort of classic Pixar tradition, where they bundle in themes and topics that are really serious, and in some cases, really dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, really dark.
Like, for one... we're talking about like abandonment and like he goes missing and all sorts of stuff like that, and we're looking at that in sort of that way. Then in 2 we're sort of looking at like breaking, like he gets broken. Woody gets broken, his arm starts to sag, and so we're looking at injury, we're looking at like being cast aside for things like that, and then
getting old.
Yeah.
But then also the weaponization of nostalgia. Like, Al possibly is one of the most horrifying villains in all of the Pixar canon, just simply because you have this sort of mad old lad. Like, it wouldn't be as bad if the toys weren't sentient, I guess. But
they feel pain.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. That's what makes it a bit darker. And then suddenly, here we are in 3, like a little bit later on. Like, time has passed both in the real world and in the film also. And we're looking at, again, a sort of kind of abandonment, but also, like, I guess a form of death. Like, that sequence in that furnace. Like, I'm glad I saw it in 3D the first time.
Oh, really?
I know that's not like a kind of, it's hardly a unique thing with sort of like, people my age with 3D glasses on. Glad for them because we're weeping. As like they hold themselves together for that last time, and then they get rescued and everything like that. But like,
of course they get rescued. It's a kids' movie.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing.
I cried. Rich, did you not cry?
I didn't cry.
Dave. I did.
Sorry.
Even I did.
Soulless
I know.
monster.
Yeah.
There's 2 points in this movie that got me, and that was the first one. I thought, oh my god, they're actually going to do it. They're going to kill the toys.
No, the merch.
I was convinced they were all going to die. And then obviously at the end when Andy takes the toys over to the little girl and starts playing with it again, that also broke me. I was like, they've got a future. This is perfect. The most perfect ending. And then that's
the thing, it's that subversion, because all the way through there was this cloud of like abandonment and like running out of use to a certain extent. And like, even though they're toys, there is kind of sort of real world parallels with that, especially with regards to sort of like aging.
Yeah.
Which,
it's like being a parent. Like, the kids are like the parent, because the older your kid gets, the less they need you, and the more useless you become. Like, I feel like that. My son's only 7, and I feel like that every day that he gets older and older and needs me less and less. And then I'll have a night like last night where they come into my room at 3 o'clock in the morning and be like, "I need a cuddle." And then I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm useful again."
I can do that.
That's so lovely. But yeah, like, I've spoken about sort of like the darker side of Pixar movies in general and Toy Story specifically, but also it is a Pixar film. It is therefore unbelievably well made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really funny, really well performed, and like, you know, this was the, you know, Toy Story, was it Toy Story or Bug's Life that came first? I can never remember.
Toy Story came first, then Bug's Life, and then Toy Story 2.
Fair enough. But yeah, like, in terms of like the CGI, we'd never seen anything like that before.
Oh, blew our minds.
And
95.
like, with them working within their means as well. Like, hair took a while. We didn't really see hair getting good until a lot later. Fire, very difficult. So what do? Well, you make the kid essentially bald, and everyone else with hair, it's painted toy hair.
Yeah.
So perfect. Like, you know, it's working within their means, but also creating this magical world, and like that everything, like every frame is like a painting because there's always stuff going on, and it continued through 2 and 3. Like the daycare center in 3. Like, you know, what an environment. Like, it's so richly detailed and drawn, and it's I love those films so much.
They're so good at introducing new characters in each story, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
It's magical.
I was driving yesterday and I saw a truck with a load of ratty old toys on the front of it, and I was like, "Oh, Toy Story!"
Lovely.
So if you had to pick a better one between 2 and 3, if like guns to the head, which one would you pick?
I think I'd go for 3.
Okay.
I think that is an entirely objective thing. I don't know if it's the best one of the 3, but it's the one that touched me deepest. I think just because of the aforementioned sort of like nostalgia and the fact that the audacity to release it so much later than 2.
Yeah.
But then you think to yourself, well, no, that was so deliberate. That was so deliberate because they got to tell a far more interesting story than if it had come out, say, 2 years after Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's what this podcast is all about. Is it absolutely doesn't matter what the best is. It means, you know, it means nothing.
To you.
It's about exactly what it means to you, and that's what movies are all about. You know, it's objectively looking at a movie and saying that's the best movie doesn't mean anything because someone will hate it, and so, you know, and someone who says that's the worst movie, someone will love it, and that's why we like this podcast. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would say 3. I think just for purely nostalgia. Purely for sort of how it affected me at the time, and like looking back on it now over sort of like the grand sweep of history, just the sheer nerve of Pixar to do that, like the cojones, to be able to, like, you know, keep their powder dry,
absolutely,
and like work on other IP before then jumping back to this and going boom, punch in the heart. How about that?
Are you a Buzz man or a Woody man?
I'm a Woody man through and through.
Instantly. Why is that?
I'm a Woody man through and through. He's flawed, yeah, but aren't we all?
I love cowboys.
I prefer a man who's open to growth.
Yeah.
And like, sure, Buzz went through growth, but that was only because an incredibly traumatic thing happened to him. As opposed to Woody, who sort of like grew through making friends and learning through environment and like making choices and becoming a better person. All Buzz did was fall off a banister. And then he's like, oh, I'm fine now, I'm great. What a loser Buzz is.
I'm guessing you haven't seen the Lightyear film then?
No.
Fuck that.
I mean, fair play to him, like, you know, but I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, leave it alone.
It's all right, actually. I thought it was all right. Yeah,
I quite enjoyed it.
Maybe I'll pick it up later when
it separates itself nicely from actual Toy Story by being sort of completely different. You know, it's.
I mean, I trust Pixar. I do.
Yeah, and it's got a robot cat. That is the highlight of the film.
Well, you know, I'm always a sucker for
There you go.
You guys know me by now.
So when you sat down and watched Toy Story 3, that was in the cinema? Was that VHS or...
That was cinema.
Sorry, VHSs weren't around in Toy Story 3
I think
days.
near enough opening night.
Yeah.
Again, because they'd sort of like, you know, denied us it for so long.
Yeah.
For it then to come out then, it was like, okay, well, this is event. This is event cinema. Like, you know, this is going to be something interesting. This isn't going to be... Yeah, not to denigrate any of the other Pixar things, but sort of like, you know, this is the big one.
Yeah. We've had that was like, what was before that? We had Incredibles, which was great. They were on a really good run as well, weren't they, Pixar?
But they were also solo films.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, at least at that time. Like, you know, because we had Monsters, Inc., we have Finding Nemo, all of which have sequels now.
What a run.
Yeah, I know, right?
Jesus.
And like, if you factor it in that, like, Pixie's a Disney company, like, you can roll that all the way back to 1989 with The Little Mermaid. And then just extraordinary run through the 90s and into the 2000s. like, you got your Aladdin, you got your Beauty and the Beast, you've got your Tarzans, your Hercules.
Lion King, number one.
Lion King, God, Lion King.
Lion King!
And it's crazy. That's why they call it the Silver Age, I guess.
How do you feel about these remakes?
I am not a fan.
I think that's just and fair.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Beauty and the Beast is pretty much my favourite Disney film, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect. And I liked it well enough, but by the end of it, I was sat there thinking to myself, okay, but the original was better.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's fine that this is here, I guess, but it doesn't really need to be.
No, it's sort of a question of we know you can, but should you?
It's very Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another film that came out in the 90s and revolutionised
Oh,
how films look. I mean, my
Yeah,
God.
completely.
But yeah, I mean, the Lion King remake, or whatever you call it, the real life transition.
Live action one, yeah.
but is it live action? Because it's animation, so it's not live action.
No, it's hard, isn't it? Yeah, that's true.
It just didn't work for me.
It's just
It's sort
bizarre.
of like I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of the uncanny valley.
Yeah, yeah.
And in this case, that was really what I got, because I was like, well, these are not real lions, but they're pretending they are.
I felt it was fine when they weren't talking.
Yeah, that made it weird.
As soon as they opened the mouth, I was like,
Yikes!
that doesn't go. That line talking doesn't go.
But, like, I understand the thinking behind it. Sort of like, creating a new sort of breed of Disney film for a new generation. Like, I get it, and I'm sympathetic to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But also,
Please don't.
Yeah,
Not for
make
me.
something new though, hey? Like, you don't have to rehash the old stuff.
well, no, but I mean, Pixar as a company, like, sort of like underneath Disney, is still churning out plenty of new stuff. Like, it's not.
They are, yeah.
They're doing fine. Like, it's not. I'd rather, in a way, they sort of focus on the remakes and doing all sorts of that than just like throwing as much IP they can at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Like Star Wars?
That's true.
Or...
Yeah, like Star Wars.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I watched The Force Awakens and I haven't seen a Star Wars film since.
I think you should probably stop there.
Yeah,
if you want to stay truly
that sounds
happy,
good.
Well, people say the 8th one's alright.
the Last
which one?
Jedi is good. Rich doesn't
Last
like
Jedi's-
it. We differ on that. I was trying to stay away from arguments, Ethan.
Sorry.
That's all right. We won't argue. It's fine.
Yeah, we
It's
don't
all right.
argue.
I don't like it that much. You do like it. It's okay. It's certainly better than the bloody Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
which
that
can
is
just get in
rubbish.
the
Don't worry
bin.
about that.
See, that is the opinion that I've heard most often spouted, which is, regardless of your opinion of 8, at least it's not 9.
Yeah.
That's
the
very
worst.
true.
Which is fair.
8, I came out of thinking, I'm not sure about it. And then 9, I was like, fuck you. Fuck all of this.
That's how I felt as well. It was awful. You gave us another choice for your best ever sequel, and I want to talk about that one. So what was your other choice? Do you remember that?
I do. So, obviously, we've been talking a lot here
Can't
about
wait to get
Disney and Pixar and sort of like, children's cartoons that sort of like provide a lot of nostalgia. So, I'd like to really just an audible clunk with the gear change and talk about Saw 2.
Nice.
I mean, how did we get
Completely
here?
honest on this about this. I'd not seen Saw or Saw 2 until they came up as your choice, and I've now watched them both.
Okay, I'd like to hear your thoughts, actually, first of all.
I think 2 is better than the first one.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah, I think it is. Dave's shaking his head.
Okay, interesting. You know what? I want to hear you out as well, Dave. This is...
Yeah, why do you not think it's better, Dave?
I think the twist at the end, which you saw coming apparently after you texted
Yeah,
me,
completely did. I was like, that dude is not
blew
dead.
my mind when the dead body got up. I just thought it's a better made film, and the twists are better, and I think it's better written.
You thought it was a better made film. There's a car chase where 2 people clearly sit in stationary cars and have their movement sped up like it's the
Okay,
1950s.
I haven't watched it in 20 years.
Like, it's not a better made film.
I haven't watched it in 20 years. I watched the second one today, though, which very much feels like a film of its time. Like
Yes.
that mid 2000, the editing and the chopping and the music and the stuff.
I mean, it was Saw that sort of codified that kind of...
It was.
sort of that level of sort of extreme cinema and what extreme cinema looked like around that sort of time.
And violence, yeah, and gore.
Yeah, I mean, for my money, I think Saw, the first one, is, considering the budget they were working with, the time they had, and the ability they had to create what they did, I genuinely think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Amen.
Because it is what they were able to achieve with so little is extraordinary.
It's very low budget, isn't it?
Extremely low budget. I mean, I don't have the figures in front of me, but it was very, very low.
Yeah.
And
45 quid and half a Twix, right?
that's it. And most of the budget went on Carrie Elwes.
I think $1 million or $2 million, and I think the second one was double it. It was like 4 million or 5 million, which is still ridiculously cheap.
It is cheap, but again, for my money, you can see every cent on the screen. I do think Saw 2 is the film that Saw maybe could have been if it had a higher budget.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I like the closed room thing of Saw, the fact that it takes place essentially in 3 locations. Jigsaw's factory, the house, and of course the bathroom, which became so famous and then repeated constantly as the series started to fall off a cliff. But that was more of I think that was more of a budget thing rather than sort of like an artistic thing. That being said, when you come to Saw 2, in a way, you have even less locations because you've chopped another one almost completely off. You're cutting between, again, Jigsaw's factory, his home base, and this house. And the house, I think, has far more of a personality, if you want, than the bathroom. Almost by necessity, because the bathroom's so like sterile and like white and everything like that. I'm not going to say sterile. There's shit and blood everywhere.
It's definitely not sterile.
But like the house is tangibly dirty. The geography is confusing, and sort of in that kind of almost Kubrickian way.
Yeah.
You never quite. It's always putting you on edge. I felt like throughout that I'm always sort of coming at 90 degrees. I mean, I've seen it a fair few times now, and there's still parts of it where I'm sort of like, oh god, yeah, that happened. Jesus. I just think it's a really good sequel. Now, I will defend Saw 3.
Okay.
I've not seen it yet.
I will lacklusterly defend Saw 4.
That's where I stopped.
I will not defend Saw 5. You can't make me.
What happens in Saw 5? The guy's dead now by now, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, long dead. He's been dead for 2 films by that point.
Mental.
But at the end of Saw 4, we got the reveal that Hoffman, played by Costas Mandylor, is going to be carrying on the Jigsaw name into the future. And so Saw 5, we get a classic thing where this is basically what the series became from this point on. It's sort of half really boring police procedural, where they're trying to work out who this copycat Jigsaw is, and half there's kind of a B plot where they've put a bunch of people in a long form series of traps, and that's happening underneath, and then it kind of sort of joins together sometimes, but not always.
Right. Is there one that says like last chapter, but then they carried on after that?
Yes.
Brilliant.
So
Always love that.
We'll get to that.
Oh, sorry. There's more than I thought. I thought it was only like 5.
Oh god, I've got bad news for you. So, Saw 5, the whole thing of that one is that they're supposed to work together, but they don't. And then the final trap is that they have to get a certain amount of blood into a jar in order to open a door, otherwise a nail bomb goes off, which would have been fine if there were the 6 of them that they started with, but now 4 of them are dead. And so they haven't got enough blood, and so and then nail bombs, etc., etc.
Does it have to be blood?
Of course it does. What else is going to be? Spit.
Piss in this jar.
Spit! I'm out.
Well, we're never going to get out of here. I'm so thirsty. Saw 6 is sort of interesting. It goes weirdly pro-universal healthcare.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It takes a really strong universal healthcare stance in this one.
And is Toby Bell Jigsaw still having recordings? Is he still in these films at this point? Has he dropped at this point?
So at this point, we're now got more
There's
familiar with his now living wife. And so we're seeing flashbacks back to how he became the Jigsawsman.
Of course.
While also then doing the Hoffman story, and then also doing this subplot with an insurance broker who denied Jigsaw health insurance back in the day, and now he's in trouble. Then there's Saw 7 3D, the final chapter, which is dog ass. Although Carrie Elwes comes back. Spoiler alert.
Oh, okay.
And it turns out it was him all along. Anyway, then it went dormant for a bit. Then they made Jigsaw, which is kind of a prequel / requel / something. It's very slick and very well together. And then the most recent one was Spiral, the Book of Saw, which is not following the main continuity of the Saw franchise, but instead in a kind of pocket dimension where all the stuff in Saw happened, except Chris Rock is there.
What?
Right, okay.
I'm bamboozled.
The series is a mess. Like, eventually, I think... I mean, the initial creators, James Wan and Lee Wannell, sort of jumped ship around 3.
Right.
Right. Okay.
But by that point, the franchise was making so much money that, like,
Yeah, 'cause
yearly
you make them on
sequels was
cheap,
the thing.
don't you? And then
Well, that's it.
release
And,
them at
you know,
Halloween and let that
and the
take off.
clever sort of advertising, like especially initially, like the tagline for the first one was "Dare you see Saw," and so it kind of had that kind of sort of Exorcist vibe to it, where
Yeah.
like, you know, are you brave enough to watch this?
Yeah.
And so of course, you know, wingnuts like me were like, yeah, sure, I'm brave enough.
How old were you when Saw came out and Saw 2?
So I would have been 12, 13 when it came out. I didn't see it until I was 15.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it would have been far too much. But I do. I mean, we sort of moved away from the point, I guess. Saw 2, I do think, is sort of an evolution of everything Saw was trying to do,
Yeah.
just with a slightly higher budget and sort of more freedom to get a bit icky with it. Because
I think Saw 2 sticks in my mind a lot more than Saw does, actually.
Is it the needle
Especially
pit?
The needle pit, man. That's never leaving my brain.
it's brutal. But I
it's
do think it
horrible.
also ties into the fact that the house has a personality almost all of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Like
does. You're right.
you're nervous whenever they turn a corner. Because like with the bathroom, sure, they're discovering stuff in there, and sort of like the room starts to sort of break away and fall apart as it continues. But because they're moving through a house where we are unfamiliar with what's in there, and we're also unfamiliar with the geography, we've got no idea what's around each corner or what's through each door.
Yeah.
And so every time it happens, you're sort of like, oh god, like the needle pit, for example, when you see that for the first time, you're like, oh Christ. And then tying it all together at the end where it's like, oh shit, this is the bathroom.
Yeah.
I know where we
Yeah.
are now.
Yeah.
And a good twist, I think.
Did you see the twist coming?
To begin with, no. I mean, again, spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it, but it's fine. It came out in 2005. Like, if you haven't watched it now, you never will. The twist is simply that we think we're watching a live recording of what's happening in the house, but it transpires that it was actually pre-recorded. And the detective that's giving played by Donnie Wahlberg,
Amazing.
who's given Jigsaw the business the whole time. His son is one of the people in the house, and Jigsaw says something very cryptic where if you just listen to what I have to say, he'll be found in a safe and secure place. But he flips his lid, beats Jigsaw up, demands to go to the house, gets trapped in the bathroom, and then it's revealed, of course, that what Jigsaw meant was that his son was literally in a safe
Next to him.
Yeah. Next
to him
right
with an
there.
oxygen mask, and the game was he just had to listen and not lose his temper, and he didn't, so he gets to live in the bathroom now.
Does he come back, Donnie Wahlberg? He's in...
He's in the opening scroll of 3, where we see him misery style break his ankle to get out of the shackle,
Right.
and then start crawling along the corridor. We don't see him again until Saw 4, where he's then involved in a trap where he is being hung but suspended on a big block of ice that's slowly melting, while Hoffman's on the other end in some electrified water. And Riggs has to get there at a certain point to save the day, etc., etc. He fails, door opens, 2 big ice cubes smush Donnie Wahlberg's head, end of Donnie Wahlberg.
If you ever go on Mastermind, Ethan, please do the Saw franchise.
See, I would, but I don't know. I don't know how happy they'd be about that. You know, if I'm having to talk about dismemberment and disembowelment on sort of like late evening quiz time TV show, I'll probably just stick with Black Books. I know a lot about that as well.
I think that's also quite rude,
Brilliant.
isn't it?
It's rude, but I think you can sort of dance around it. With Saw, it's sort of like who, yeah. Who
How
got
did this
a
person
load
die?
of syringes filled with hydrochloric acid thrown
Yeah.
into their back, and it's like, oh, it was the health insurance guy. I can't remember his name.
Wow.
Would you watch another one? How devoted are you to this, or is it now just ugh?
Well, let me put it this way. Last Halloween, myself and a few friends of ours, we have a weekly meet-up, normally to do D&D or board games. But we had Halloween Fest, where every Monday we watched 2 Saw films, back to back. And because none of us, because of COVID and everything, the release for Spiral, the Book of Saw, had been pushed and pulled and all over the place. And I think it saw a limited theatrical release, but we weren't able to get to it.
Yeah.
So all this was going to culminate in us watching Spiral, the Book of Saw, for the first time together,
Oh,
and it was a glorious time. And we'll almost certainly go and watch the next one.
did watching it like that make them better? Because that's how we watched them like movies at uni. We're mainly like 10 people in a small room kind of thing. Really getting.
I think
into
it helped that we were all familiar with it as well.
Okay.
Like, we'd all seen all of the films at least once, maybe twice So like we knew where bits were coming and everything like that. So it was sort of a more sort of collegiate experience.
Yeah.
Where, you know, we felt comfortable sort of like yelling at the screen.
Yeah, that makes it so much better.
It's sort of Rocky Horror style.
He's
you know,
behind you. Yeah.
Dave laughs at me a lot because I've not seen like many horror movies at all.
That's
like
fine.
I'm really not into it. Horror is really not my genre at all. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't really want to watch Saw. This isn't going to be fun. And thinking it was going to be like Hostel, because I've seen Hostel, and I came out of that going, well, that's disgusting. I don't want to see that again. And actually, Saw is a lot better. It's a lot more of
because Saw, bless it, it's a bit camp.
It is a bit, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
also,
with
it has
Hostel,
a bit more about it. It feels like there's a little bit more kind of going on.
Yeah, like with Hostel, it's sort of like, this sucks because this probably happens.
Yeah.
Whereas with Saw, it's like, well, this is clearly stupid. Like, like, you know, this is just silly. And once you sort of let go from it and that, and sort of like just sort of go, well, this is just a bit of fun, really.
Yeah.
It becomes much easier to deal with. The later sequels less so because they stop being fun and start being more about Hoffman and his fucking problems. And it's like, yeah, well, of course you got problems. You're a copycat serial killer.
It looks like hard work setting all those traps up and stuff.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, here's the thing.
He's got to really love
working
it.
full time as a police officer. So presumably he's doing that during the day and then going to set up his little like warehouse of fun at night. Then going to find all the people to put in it. Like, God, his diary.
Yeah,
I
when
want
does
to
he
read
get time
his
to
diary.
relax?
It's like, get up, 8 a.m, go to work, 7 p.m, finish, 8 p.m, go to warehouse, 9 p.m, set up all the nail bombs.
Quick question. So this is not about your worst sequel, but what sequel have you found most disappointing? So you were really excited to see it, and then it was just not bad, but just you were let down. Is there anything that comes to mind when you're thinking about that?
You're not going to like this answer because it's a bit of a cheat.
That's fine. We accept all answers.
The Hobbit.
Yeah,
okay.
Well,
That's a good answer.
If you sort of consider it as kind of because I know it's a prequel. I know this. But like in terms of sort of like, you know, the actual real world of how these
franchise,
things are created,
yeah.
it is sort of a sequel to Lord of the Rings, a bit.
But you can allow it because Bilbo's in it writing his book at the start, and so that's already happened.
Yeah, there's Ian Holm.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
We're on solid ground.
Yeah.
It really didn't need to be 3. I'd question whether it needed to be 2. It shouldn't have taken the length of an entire noughties comedy to get out of the Shire. Like 90 minutes of just drinking songs and mucking around.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like it's of course brilliantly made, well performed, well acted, but I was just bored.
And you were really excited to go in. I was proper hyped about it as well.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, Peter Jackson's back doing the thing, the thing, and it's the Hobbit, and like, there's so much cool stuff in there. Like, I can't wait to see Smaug. Like, you know, that first meeting of Gollum, the trolls, the freaking trolls. I want to see that bit. And then it was just sort of a bit,
and it kept going.
And it just kept going.
And then they did the extended cuts.
That's the thing. I think the biggest problem that I had with it ultimately was that the cinematic releases, the theatrical release, already felt like the extended cuts. And so like, it didn't. Unlike with Lord of the Rings, I mean, I'm an absolute extended cut purist. Like, I haven't seen the theatrical cut of Lord of the Rings for many a year, but with this one, it felt like an obligation rather than a treat.
Yeah, we only watched them extended because we're in COVID.
Yeah,
me and the
that
wife.
was time.
Yeah. I was like, well, we've got no house to watch. You can't say no to these films. Just talking to my wife. Eventually, I got her to watch Lord of the Rings, which she liked, and then I got to watch The Hobbits. She didn't like, and then the other day, she's a school teacher, and she was talking about books that she could read to the children, the class that they could study, kind of thing. And I was like, "How about The Hobbit?" She's like, "I haven't got time to do that a book that big." I was like, "No, The Hobbit is like wafer thin." But she's like, "The films is like 3 films." I was like, "Yeah, they added so much that they had to add." You could read it in a day. It's so, and it's boom, boom, boom. It's amazing. It would make an amazing just one film. Especially when Del Toro was meant to do it as well. Oh.
Yeah, I saw it at the cinema really late on. So not when it first came out. And it was just me and one other guy in the cinema watching it. And about 20 minutes into it, he jumped out of his seat, sprinted out of the cinema and didn't come back.
Can't blame him.
So now all I think about is that guy and where he was going and what happened.
What
I don't
happened
care about
is,
the movie. That's lost.
Because I think the sprint makes it sound more urgent. Like, if he was
Yeah.
just walking out, he would have walked.
No, he properly ran out.
Ran!
If I had a guess, diarrhea.
I think that's fair. I think that's more than fair.
It was either that or maybe his wife was pregnant or, the baby was coming. Like,
No, it's the
I don't
poo
know.
one. It's the poo
it's the
one.
poo
Yeah,
one,
because
right?
if you've got a wife that's expecting it, the baby's going to be born any minute, you wouldn't pick a 3-hour epic, would you? You'd be like, oh, look, I'll look at the time. This one's only like 87 minutes. Maybe I'll get to see that. Not, oh yeah, this one's just under 4 hours. I'll just
That'd be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure nothing can happen in
keep
4
it
hours.
in. That's what
Well,
you do,
that being
right?
said, if it was 20 minutes in, he would have struggled with any film, really.
Still playing their flute or whatever at that point. When they still haven't been
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Oh, yeah, they were still well into the show.
We haven't even
like-
seen Martin Freeman by that point.
God, yeah, that was a disappointment. I went and saw that at a screening early on a Sunday morning. We got tickets from my work, and they did a Dolby Atmos. This is when Dolby Atmos was brand new,
Oh, yeah.
and they just put it into the Leicester Square Cinema, which is now the Cineworld. And I tell you what, the 5-minute test of Atmos was better than the film of The Hobbit. It wasn't worth the early walk, like train into London and do it. I'm with you with that one.
Yeah, it's just a shame. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just a shame.
I want someone to do it better. That's all I ask now.
I'd like someone to just make 1 2.5 hour film.
Yeah, because there's now doing a TV series of prequel stuff for Lord of the Rings. Very excited. Amazon, most expensive TV show ever made for like £1 billion, whatever it is. Would you watch a Hobbit TV series if they don't drag it out?
I suppose, because, I mean, it's sort of... Because the book itself is kind of almost episodic
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
its structure. Like, it sort of almost lends itself to a kind of...
It would. It's like a 9-part miniseries kind
And
of thing.
TV's
That's
so
perfect.
good at the moment.
Because, like, yeah, I mean, if it was sort of like, if it was just that, just a proper, dynamic, as you say, 9 or 10 episode series that's like, made with the finest craft and with the best actors money can buy.
Yeah.
And I am available. So, I reckon, yeah, that would be great. And I cannot stress enough I am available and ready.
Yeah, can you do a good West Country?
Well, I did Doc Martin, so I had to do that. I wouldn't say it's good, but it was good enough for Doc Martin. So
There we go.
That'll do.
What's the worst? What was your worst sequel ever?
Right, so when we were talking about this, I sensed a bit of pushback.
It's just a surprise, but it's your choice, Ethan.
Right.
Yeah. I want to
Allow
hear
me to
it.
clarify my position thusly.
Tell us what it is, and then
So it's Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Now, here is the caveats and the preface.
Brilliant.
Regardless of the direction that its creator has taken now, it is, without doubt, one of the most ambitious film series that I think anyone has ever attempted, and in Warner Brothers' case, actually did it.
Yeah.
We're talking about a series of films that started when the book series it was based on wasn't even finished. And they decided that they were going to follow these kids that they started off with all the way through their teenage years, culminating into when they become adults right at the very, very end. It is an extraordinary achievement that they were able to pull that off. And I don't think... I don't know if they'd even try it again. I don't know if the risks would be worth it.
Yeah.
But they did it. And everyone... I mean, I think most, if not all, of the people in it have gone on to do great things. It was a truly special time and a truly special series.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, would you like to sit down and watch Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 with me?
Yeah.
Why not?
Would you, though?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Would you want to watch that out of sequence? Just on its own? Like, we're not watching any of the others, we're just watching that one.
I have just done it with my son, actually, because he's kind of working his way through. And
But, he's seen it within the context of the rest of it.
Yeah, although we have to skip back and forwards because he just, for some reason, loves the Chamber of Secrets. So we've watched that about 15 times.
It's a very, very good film. But, so it's my argument, my thing here is that, as a whole, masterstroke.
Yeah.
As individual films, not all of them work.
Absolutely.
And I think the example of the one that worked the least is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
Okay.
I think, as a film, it's unfocused, it's messy,
Too long?
way too long, considering what they actually focus on what they actually spend the time doing. Like, Order of the Phoenix was the shortest film of that series and the longest book.
Really?
And so
the book's massive.
So it was interesting then to see Half-Blood Prince go so long and focus so much on the just teenage drama and the angst and like the properly tepid relationship between Harry Potter and Ginny Weasley. Which is, and I don't blame actors. I never blame actors because conditions are such. But my God, they were let down. They were let down by the script. They were let down by the shooting conditions, possibly by the director. I don't know, but it is just so flaccid.
Are we talking about the bit where she ties his shoes?
Oh yes.
Ooh.
My wife's a big fan of the books, and when I said like I was watching this because it's someone's worst sequel, she was like, "Yeah, I mean, the book is so much better than the movie. Like the relationship between Ginny and Harry in the book is so much better. Apparently,
did you read the books beforehand?
Yeah, I was.
So you knew the death of Dumbledore was happening, and you built.
Yeah, I knew that going into it. So it was more about how it was handled and everything like that. And like, I'll give them props. Like the final 15 minutes of that film is pretty good.
But everything else.
But it just takes so long to get there.
It is very long.
It's so, and it's got nothing to say. Like, when it comes to the other films in that series that are of length, at least, say what you like about Deathly Hallows Part 1, at least stuff happens in it.
I like it.
Like,
there's a lot
they
of
move
running
about and like they go all sorts of different places and some of it's a bit cheesy, but at least there's some momentum. With this, there's very little magic. There's very little.
Voldemort's not in it, is he? At all?
Half-Blood Prince?
Yeah.
I think you might appear in sort of like bits and bobs and flashbacks.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's made. There's a lot of young Voldemort, Tom Riddle stuff.
There's Tom Riddle in flashbacks, but there's no actual kind of like Voldemort in it.
I think that's sort of part of its issue, which actually puts it in contrast to to which is that in the film there's very little threat.
Yeah,
there's no sort of like driving momentum with the suggestion that anything's building to anything. I don't know if that's as a result of like them almost painting themselves into a corner by not doing it before everything came out. So like obviously Dumbledore's death was a huge surprise.
Yeah.
And like everything was sort of building to that, and maybe there was a received assumption because when you're deep in like filming stuff, like you can sometimes fail to see the wood for the trees. So maybe they were sort of like well, obviously everyone knows that we're building to the death of Dumbledore, so we can sort of build social relationships and focus on more character stuff, which in and of itself would have been fine if it wasn't so poorly written and badly staged. But instead, you've got, again, like I said, like a fairly decent 15 minutes worth of action at the end.
Yeah.
And sort of everything leading into it is just teenage drama that isn't even that good.
So were you really excited going into it? Were you pumped after Order of the Phoenix, or did you enjoy that one? Because I find that a little lackluster for some reason.
I'm with you. Order of the Phoenix wasn't as good as it could have been. I don't think it was bad. I would say unequivocally that Half-Blood Prince is a bad film.
Okay.
I don't think Order of the Phoenix was a bad film. I don't think it was good per se, but I thought it was decent.
Yeah.
And Deathly Hallows, taken as a pair, pretty good. Again, it suffers a bit in length. There's very few of those films that could, not be improved by chopping about 20 minutes off.
Yeah, true.
Half-Blood Prince could probably do with cutting about 2 hours off.
I'd love to be sitting in the cinema with you and just hear you going.
Well, no, the thing is, there's an old ebook quote, and I'm gonna mangle it.
Go for
it. But like, a good long film always feels short, whereas a bad short film always feels long.
Yeah.
And this has the dual distinction of being both bad and long.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Which is unfortunate.
I have one major question about the there's a point where Dumbledore and Harry go off to find a Horcrux, and it's hidden in the pool of poison. And Dumbledore goes, "I've got to drink the poison." Like, well, why don't you pour it on the floor? Like,
you couldn't. It's magic, right? There's the answer.
But they don't explain that in the film, though. There's none of that. It's just like, I've just got to drink it.
Again, I think it's that sort of myopia of being deep within it. Again, sort of like what Dave mentioned. That's probably the answer. It's just that it was taken as read. I mean, obviously they know he's going to have to drink it because magic or something. It was probably better explained in the book. I haven't read it in a while. But
I don't know. I haven't got to it yet. I'm on the third one with my son at the moment.
I mean, you want to talk about the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban? That's the best of the lot.
That's a good one.
We're only 3 chapters into that. He has a chapter a night just before he goes to bed.
Nice.
And we started on the first one, and yeah, we just finished Chamber of Secrets which is his favourite, and yeah, now we're on to Prisoner of Azkaban, which I'm enjoying more than him, I think.
How pumped would you be if they did the Curse of the Child, where it's something Cursed Child?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, have you not?
No, not that interested, to be honest with you.
But if it came out as a film, would you go and see it then?
Probably not. I haven't seen any of the Fantastic Beasts, so...
No, well, that's they.
No, you don't
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, like, you know, once that whole thing had done, like, you know, I was basically an adult by this point. I'd sort of grown out of Harry Potter to a certain extent, so I wasn't sort of particularly interested in sort of like all the ancillary stuff hanging around the edges.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, whatever. You know, I've seen all the films, I've read the books, that's good, see you later. That's for the next generation now.
I watched the first one with my son, and he about half an hour in, he went, "When is there going to be some magic?"
Because we have to set it up, child. Also,
You've lost
Hagrid
your
lights a
audience
fire
already.
in like, and then all those letters. What's not magic about that?
Oh no, I meant the first Fantastic Beasts. Sorry,
Oh.
not the first.
I thought you were talking about
Sorry.
Harry Potter as well.
No, I was talking about the first Fantastic Beasts movie. It's seen all the Harry Potters by then, and we watched the first Fantastic Beasts movie, and about half an hour into it, where's the magic?
Well, I think that speaks to the
not
film,
good.
really. I guess.
Yeah,
That's one of
and
its issues.
we also have to caveat that every time we talk about Harry Potter, we have to give some money to a trans rights charity, because we don't like promoting.
I mean, that
stuff we
of
don't
course
believe
is
with.
the other reason why I wouldn't engage in any sort of Harry Potter media moving forward.
Yeah.
Because yeah,
Yeah.
But, you know, we don't have to go into that. But,
No.
No,
you know, we know.
What scene really kicks you in the nuts for the Half-Blood Prince? Which scene do you really hate?
You mentioned the shoelace tying scene. I mean, it's supposed to be cute, I guess, but it's just so cringe. Just because of the way it's shot, just like the hold on the camera, and it just feels dump. I just don't enjoy it. I worry that what might have happened is that the overwhelming success of Twilight at around that time meant that we wanted like mopey caricatures, just sort of like being all distant with each other.
Yeah.
And that wasn't what made the Potter films good. It had joie de vivre. It was alive. You know, there was always stuff happening, and the paintings moved, and like, you know, like, there's all these crazy characters, and like, you know, personality. And I just feel like it didn't have any personality. It was Twilight, but in the Harry Potter universe. And then Dumbledore dies at the end,
that's a hard one. Yeah,
which again was pretty decent. Like, you know, they did it pretty well. I thought it was cool. Like, you know, they set up the whole Malfoy thing. I thought that was fine.
So when you were going into the 7 and 8, were you pretty low on it?
I wouldn't say that I went to see them out of obligation. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to see them because, like, you know, there had been dips in quality before.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Goblet of Fire, for all its charm.
My favourite.
Interesting.
Really enjoyed it.
Interesting.
Really fun. I like all that stuff.
Azkaban's mine.
I think that's a lot of people's favourite. I really don't like the first two.
See, I do like the first two.
I can't get on board with that. I think they're badly made films. But I'm starting to learn to respect them. Yeah, I'm starting to learn to respect them a bit more because they did a lot of heavy lifting in those films, especially that first one.
I think the second one is clunkiest for me.
It's too long.
I think they're badly made films, though, Dave. Yeah. Oh,
I feel like Chamber of Secrets sort of has an issue with length, but unlike with Half-Blood Prince with its issue with length, with Chamber of Secrets, there's at least momentum. There's like, you know, stuff's happening all the time.
True.
Like, you know, there's this active threat at all times, which is, you know, more than
very active. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, anyone could be next.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's sort of got that going for it. But I mean, Azkaban for me is, I just love it. I was having a discussion with it was ages ago, years ago, as to the best scene in that film. And it's when they're underneath the Whomping Willow, because in they come, all the kids, and there's Gary Oldman. There he is. He's got his teeth into the scenery and he's chewing away.
Oh, he's so good.
Then in comes Thewlis. Oh my God, it's Thewlis. What's happening here? Oh, who's this? Rickman. Rickman's in as well in the same scene. And what about this rat? Boom, Spall. It's like, God, if they dropped a bomb on that scene,
Yeah,
like, that would be
that was a
the
wealth
end of
talent.
cinema. It'd be over.
Have you ever gone into a sequel and been surprised about it? So the first one or the first few were rubbish, but then it was better than you thought, basically. So maybe like an example is going from Half-Blood Prince to Deathly Hallows. You think, oh, that's better than I thought it was going to be.
I'm giving this a lot of thought because
Thank you.
My instinct is to say no.
So
I'm struggling to think of a sequel that I think, I don't know.
it can be anywhere in the franchise. So like a Fast and Furious or a Mission Impossibles are always quite good examples.
I mean, Secrets into Azkaban is a good one.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
It is so.
That's a
because
jump.
Obviously, Alfonso Cuarón got his hands on it, and everything then is just so visually distinct and so gothic, and like everyone's acting to the fullest. So it's probably that. I mean, so I'm trying to think of sort of like the big franchises.
It's like Fast Five is
be a Bond
one
film,
that people weren't expecting.
Marvel franchise.
I mean, a Bond film's interesting because I think of the Craig era, it's sort of
that was a ride.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen No Time to Die yet, I must admit. But I mean, it really felt like the odd-numbered films were the really good ones.
Mm.
And so I suppose you could say, like, Casino Royale going into Quantum of Solace was a downer, and we were all very sad about that. But then Quantum of Solace went into Skyfall.
Yeah.
Which is, for my money, the second best of the Craig era. The first being Casino Royale. I don't know if that's controversial.
No, they basically we agree with you. We've spoken quite a lot about Bond. Me and Rich aren't massive Bond fans.
I'm not a big Bond head. I can't claim to have seen all of them, but I think I've seen a lot of them on TV. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, on a Sunday.
Yeah, of course. But I did think Skyfall was really, really good.
Yeah.
And especially after Quantum. It was sort of like, oh, okay, they've got a handle on it again. Here we go.
I think Quantum is my worst Bond film of all the Bond films.
Wow.
And Skyfall is my best Bond film of all the Bond films. So
it's all from the Craig era.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
not even a Lazenby among them.
No, I've never.
Lazenby, I didn't like that one, but people have started to think that's now a great Bond, and I can't get on that train.
I think it's one of those things where I think just people like just to reclaim things.
Yeah,
You know how people sort of reclaim Batman and Robin.
No,
and it's like they're like, no, it's a camp classic. It's a camp classic. No, it's dog dumps. It's
it's terrible.
It's
Batman.
really bad.
it's truly awful.
And it's not because it's a camp classic. Like, that's not the issue.
No.
The issue is it's a bad film.
It's because it's a film that entirely exists in one-liners. No one actually talks to each other in that film. They just spout one-liners at each other. Like, there's literally no dialogue. It's ridiculous.
The Mr. Free stuff is pretty awful in that film.
And I mean, like, Clooney at least has sort of had the good grace to sort of joke about it and say, yeah, it was bad.
Apparently he's refunded people's money for getting to watch it.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, fair play to him. Like, it's it's a certain sort of penance is required for bringing the man who is the Batman so low.
Bond's never got that low, though, has it? I mean, Die Another Day was pretty bad. That's about my worst ever Bond.
I don't think it's never
sunk to that depth,
properly dropped off a cliff.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's still going suggests that there's still life in the franchise itself. I mean, you could say that about Batman to a certain extent, but
there was a
Batman
big gap.
films are so radically different to each other.
Yeah.
In some of them, it may as well be a different franchise.
Absolutely.
I mean, imagine if you actually think about it back to back in terms of Batman films, it goes Batman and Robin, Batman Begins.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. That is true. Yeah.
Couldn't be more different.
And a lot of people say that we have Batman and Robin to thank for Batman Begins, because that kind of sparked the reaction of people going, we don't want these campy superhero movies anymore. We want dark, gritty realism.
And I think these things go up and down. I mean, Batman is constantly reflective of the comics that are happening around it. And so, certainly towards the tail end of the 1900s, as we must now call them, towards the tail end of that, the comics were getting grittier. We had all the sort of stuff of people dying left, right, and centre, real sort of gritty stuff. So I suppose it's reflective of the comics as well. But I think nowadays we're sort of in a kind of a different space because superhero films have so far outstripped comics and where they come from, the films are almost directing the comics now, I suppose, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Because they've sort of got less to draw from.
Yeah, that's true.
Because, like, I mean, if you take the most recent Batman with your man off of Twilight,
Yeah.
I mean, that's still reflective of that late 90s Batman. Like, that's still sort of Killing Joke Batman.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And we're sort of still doing that, even though Nolan sort of did the gritty Batman.
Yeah, the Death of Batman kind of Breaking Back kind of thing.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff there. But we're sort of still there.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the Batman? Have you seen that one?
The new one?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet, no. But, like, you know, I've seen enough of it to go, oh, right, that's what they're shooting for. They're going for sort of like kind
absolutely.
of detective-y style, gritty.
It's
There is
another
3
one
hours
of
of
those
it.
very long movies.
There's only limited time in a day. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know when you were talking earlier about films that felt long or are long kind of thing? The Batman was that film for me. I
Right.
mean,
Lots of
did
people
not-
really love it. Like, we should caveat that with loads
Yeah,
of people
people
really
liked
love
it.
it. We didn't love it though, did we? mate?
No, we didn't.
But wouldn't it be a boring world if we were all the same?
Exactly.
This is what's so good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like, I'm always pleased when like stuff finds an audience because, like, you know, I've worked long enough in this industry to see stuff that I've made do absolute gangbusters and stuff that I've made that I really believed in,
Yeah.
like, fall at the first hurdle. So if a film is able to find its audience, or any piece of media is able to find its audience and the audience love it, that's something to be celebrated.
Yeah. Because no one
absolutely.
plans to make a bad film. We say that a lot on this or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, some people do.
U-Bowl, from whatever his name is, for the German
Unequal,
guy.
the
For tax
Sharknado
reasons.
lads.
Oh, yeah. They're bad ones.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one's ever brought them up. You're the first person to mention a Sharknado film.
I mean, I'm not. I guess because they're not that interesting to talk about.
Have you seen them all?
I've seen
Is
a
this-
couple.
Is this another one you've watched with your mates 2 a week?
No, I've seen a couple sort of independently, sort of here and there, because it used to come up on the Sci-Fi Channel quite a lot, and it used to be a laugh just to watch some terrible CGI for it.
What's the shark fighting now?
Yeah, so
Kind of
he's
thing.
got octopus legs, has he? Cool.
Yeah. It's got 8 heads now.
Sharktopus, right? Yeah, cool.
That was a good one.
Piranha gator versus shark kangaroo, or whatever.
Brilliant.
I would pay good money to see a shark kangaroo.
Well, they won't spend any good money to make it.
No,
Yeah.
They'll just knock it up on iMovie.
I'll be in it.
I mean, obviously, I'm available.
Yeah. What is your dream sequel?
Right. So again, we spoke about this before, and I said, right, I'm going to do a serious one and a joke one.
Which one are you going to do first?
I'll do the joke one first because that's just going to be the joke, and then we can immediately move on. So my joke one is Bad Education the movie 2,
Brilliant.
because that would keep me in beer for a bit.
Nice choice.
Anyway, moving on. So
Oh no, we've watched it. Well, I've watched it when I really like Bad Education, the series. I really find it a great
thank
TV
you.
series.
Yeah,
I think
it is.
I think
It
it's
is a great
hilarious.
it was the first thing I ever did, and like the fact
You're
that
all
it's
great
still
in
got life now is wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I'm mucking around on the socials and mucking around on the TikToks, like, the people still talk about it and still watching it. I think helped by the fact that obviously it's available now on Netflix, alongside Afterlife, which is another thing I did available worldwide on Netflix.
Yeah, that's okay
180
as well.
countries, 278 languages. So. And National Comedy Award winning. But the fact that it was able to get its second life on streaming
Yeah.
is really nice. And like I said, the fact that people are still excited about it and still talk about it and, like, you know,
Yeah.
still remember bits from it. I mean, I'm one of those that doesn't like watching myself in things. I tend to watch it once just to see how it turned out and then abandon. So, like, you know, I haven't seen Bad Education in any form for 7 years. And so it's always kind of mad to me when people are like, "Oh, do you remember when you did this?" And I'm like, "No."
No.
Barely
It
remember
doesn't
what I
feel
did
like
last
that
week.
long ago. Yeah, it
I was
doesn't
surprised when I checked when it came out, and it was 2015 or 2017. Sorry, what was?
So the film would have been 2015,
Yeah, it feels like yesterday, to be honest.
but no, it was a full 7 years ago.
Wow.
Makes me feel old. Don't know what it makes you feel.
I mean, again, it's difficult because, like, so much has happened since then that
Yeah.
it sort of feels like a kind of. I mean, I sort of view my career looking back on it, especially now it's been sort of 10 years. I sort of view it back as sort of like as checkpoints. You've got the Bad Education era, you've got the in-betweeny bit, you've got the pizza delivery year, and then
Yeah.
you've got the Afterlife years.
Yeah.
The Afterlife / Horrible History years.
Brilliant.
And so, like, those are sort of like the kind of sort of landmarks of my career. So like, I'm leaving Afterlife behind now.
Yeah.
And sort of moving into whatever this brings. I mean, be it Horrible Histories, because, I hope to make some more of that, or whatever else comes up. Like, it's... I've been referring obliquely on Twitter to things that I've done earlier this year that I'm very, very excited about, that I also can't talk about at all.
Yeah.
But obviously I will, come the time.
Yeah, of course.
I will give you a small hint.
Oh, yes. Do it.
I'm in a sequel to something.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Well, I'm going to go and look and see what's coming. Is it the Railwell Children? We're watching that next week.
No, I think I'd be allowed to talk about it if it was that
Yeah,
good point. I'm still under NDA right up until it comes out.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, this as well. Ah!
So would you go back to being Joe in Bad Education? And what do you think your character would be doing?
Well, I mean, there's talk
a
of
better
a reunion
haircut
at the minute.
Oh, yeah.
That was announced. I'm still not sure what's happening with it right now. But, it's something I'm going to have to consider. Should it end up happening? Because, like, yes, I forget the characters once they're done with.
Yeah.
Like, once I know that there's a reasonable chance I'm not going to be playing that character again, it's gone. Like, I'm not like sentimental or like, romantic about my characters. Once I'm done, they're done. See you later. Move on.
So how would you get back into that character? Would you put a bad haircut together? No, offense to your
no,
friends.
I probably wouldn't do that. No, I don't need to go that method.
I feel like Joe would be a history teacher now.
I mean, that's the thing.
Feel like
if the reunion goes off in the way that I understand it to go off, we're sort of looking at it being kind of however long in the future now is from when that was.
Yeah.
So, like, he'd be an adult now.
Yeah.
And, like, I'd sort of thinking to myself, we're sort of, he was supposed to be like 16 or whatever. So let's say it's 10 years. So he'd be 26 now. And, like, I know for a fact that I am not the same person I was when I was 26 and when I was 16.
Oh, absolutely not.
And so, like, it would be trying to find the parts of Joe that I remember, like, the softness, the innocence, the sort of kind of pliancy and sort of going on with sort of like kind of mad schemes and things like that. I'd find that energy, but it wouldn't be a kid anymore.
Yeah.
So it would be tempering it in some way or finding some way to do that. I mean, I'm not a big, like, method guy. I'm
not Daniel Day-Lewis.
I'm suspicious of the method. I'm sort of more...
It sounds weird. I'm
more sort of thinking to myself, well, I'm not being paid to be. I'm being paid to act.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just finding the little bits and bobs that you can sort of, like, cobble together, like, little things. Like, I used to do improv at uni. President of the improv group, actually, as it happens. And one game that we used to play, which I found really useful for a lot of characters moving forward, is that you'd be walking around sort of like a space, very sort of drama game warm-up. But I've always found this very interesting. Someone would call out a body part for you to lead with. So it could be like your nose or your forehead or your chest or elbow or knee or something. And so you'd start doing that, and then you'd be asked to exaggerate it, and then exaggerate it again, and then exaggerate it again until, like, your whole posture has changed and you're moving weirdly and you're sort of standing a different way. And then it's like, boom, there's your character. And, like, obviously that makes it great for, like, really heightened improv characters. But it has worked for me in certain other aspects. Like, I alluded to a film that I did that I wish had done better than it did. But, these are the whims of cinema sometimes. Sometimes things don't land at the right time, and that's a shame. But I played a punk from 70s Croydon. And I'm not a punk from 70s Croydon. I don't know if you know that. So I was thinking to myself, well, how can I, body-wise, what can I do to kind of sort of do that? And I decided to just lead from the hip. Like, so he's kind of sort of like a kind of sort of gregarious, always moving forward, but also kind of sort of like a kind of sort of lax sort of attitude where it's sort of like, man, punk, whatever. And it ended up working, and I'm really pleased with that performance. And, it sort of worked. So I was happy with that. And that's sort of the method to get into it, I find. So in answer to your question, a very long and rambling answer to your question.
Love it.
But essentially it would just be sort of remembering bits and bobs that we had from before and then just sort of combining it with new bits and seeing what comes out. You'd usually find that in the rehearsal process anyway.
Hopefully it comes together and we get to see it.
Yeah, with any luck.
Fingers crossed.
That's the thing. So
really
you never
like
know what can
I'd
happen
really like
in
to
this
see that.
industry.
Yeah. So what is your serious sequel? Dream sequel?
So I selected Ratatouille. because I had difficulty with this. Not to sort of like, denigrate your show or how it works, but
by all means, go for it.
the tricky thing that I had was that if a film is good enough to warrant a sequel, there's a chance that it's also the reason why it's good is because it's a complete thing that can stand alone.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
No, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what a Ratatouille sequel would look like. All I know is that I loved that world and wanted to spend more time in it. Whatever form that takes. But again, the issue that you have there is that basically all of the sort of main issues that Remy and the gang were facing have essentially been solved by the end of the film. So really it might just be sort of more of a kind of, I guess, almost mockumentary of the running of a French bistro where the head chef's a rat. But I'd watch that.
I would watch that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, because I like sequels that are a little bit different as well. So you at least got to applaud when sequels tried to be different. That would be different, wouldn't it?
It
would, yeah.
And it would distance it from the first film, because I think you'd need to, because again, we spoke earlier about sort of like how Pixar creates such sort of textured worlds that sort of are very deeply thematic in a big way. And you look at Ratatouille and what it's saying, like, on sort of like a kind of philosophical / moral level. And, it's a film about ambition. It's a film about being denied fulfilling that ambition because of who or what you are.
Yeah.
Again, it's about nostalgia. It's about gatekeeping in industry. It's about wealth disparity. It's about like all sorts of these things, and it's probably one of the most complex and textured films that Pixar's ever made, in my view.
It's beautiful. I love it.
And the whole sequence with your food reviewer at the end, just suddenly being transported back home.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful sequence, and it's such a beautiful. I love that film. But I think, because everything had been functionally solved, it would be difficult then to create a sequel that's hitting the same beats. Because then you sort of end up with a Cars 2 or a Toy Story 4.
And no one wants a Cars 2.
So I think, my dream sequel would be a Ratatouille sequel where it's more kind of like a fly on the wall, office style mockumentary of like the day-to-day running of a Parisian bistro.
Yeah.
Whose head chef is a literal rat.
That was a great shout. I did say to my wife I'd have a really funny day that I'd watched Saw 2, the Bad Education movie, and Ratatouille in one day.
That's quite a triple bill, isn't it?
It was interesting.
I'm not sure there's any order you could put that in that would make it like palatable or normal.
There isn't. I am a little bit surprised that they've never returned here, though, because Pixar do love to go back to the well quite a bit.
Well, they do and they don't know. They do. They know when to leave things alone as well, I think, don't they?
Do they? Because there is Toy Story 4. We keep talking about Toy Story 4 a lot.
True.
But there are ones that they have left alone. Like, we've got Monsters Inc. and Monsters University. Whatever you think of that, no matter. We've got Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. Fair enough. Cars, obviously. Toy Story. But with the rest of them, they're often standalones. Your Bug's Life, your Brave, your Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Inside Out.
But normally they go with the more popular ones. They do go there.
Yeah.
You can't Inside Out, and I think Inside Out, you'd be surprised that I think there'll be something coming from that one day.
You reckon?
Like something very similar.
It felt like of all the ones that they sort of left alone, that one kind of had the scope to do more.
I don't trust people.
You guys. I love it.
Yeah,
it's magic.
It's a brilliant film, definitely. Absolutely. And sort of not your standard kids movie either, Inside Out, is it? It's like it deals
Why
with
is Daddy
loss and
crying?
pain and yeah.
Oh, look, it's a Pixar film dealing with deep, dark thematic things such as loss or
which is like normal now, but when it came out, it wasn't. I don't think
that's it.
Not quite
it's
so
loss
much.
as being disassociated. It's a film about growing up into puberty.
Yeah.
Like, it's a literal metaphor for the puberty process. Go on, Pixar.
Do you think that's how they sold it to Walt Disney? We're going to do this film.
Walt Disney's severed head in a cryogenic chamber.
I love it. Like Futurama.
Yes, make it. Make the movie. I'm Walt Disney.
Would you like Brad Bird to come back as director? No.
Yeah. I I mean, I think he's great, and but I also think that there's a pool of directors that Pixar use that are very good anyway. So I think it'd be in safe hands no matter what.
Yeah.
But if you're going to try do a mockumentary style, you might want someone else who's got a different kind of view, maybe. Like,
Who are you
I don't know.
thinking?
I can't think of one. I
was like, he's going with Stephen Merchant here. Isn't he?
Stephen Merchant would be good, wouldn't he?
I was on tenterhooks. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what's it going to be?
Us, Dave. We can do it, Dave. We're good at mockumentary.
Absolutely not.
You're really going to give up that easily?
It
Yeah,
does
we
seem
can-
that way.
We could do it. We could do a mockumentary of Ratatouille.
We made a
Go on.
mockumentary back in uni, made about 20 years ago now, probably.
Our one film we've actually made, you mean?
Yeah. It was about a boy band.
Right.
A terrible boy band where the whole premise is they never actually perform.
Because we can't
So,
sing.
They talk a good game all the way through, but you never actually see them perform all the way through the mockumentary. So it's lots of talking heads about going to the top and, being the best, and Dave's love of Gary Barlow. But yeah,
Love Gary
never
Barlow.
actually seen them perform.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's put me in mind of. I mean, I'm going to say Rob Reiner.
Nice.
Well, he's going to be busy doing Spinal Tap 2.
The Squeakquel.
oh, that doesn't.
No, that's happening.
No,
it's
you're
actually
joking.
happening.
Yeah, no, it
it
got
is,
announced
yeah.
like a month ago.
How did I miss that?
I'm worried. I'm
Yeah.
not
My
gonna lie.
God, I'm googling this.
Yeah, I am worried.
I mean, is it going to be same guys or?
Yeah,
Yep.
all the same cast. Yeah.
There's a synopsis and everything.
My God. Okay, all right. Well,
You see-
maybe after he's done that,
Anything's possible with sequels.
we could say to him, "Look, you've clearly had fun making this mockumentary. If you fancy making another one, I've got a cartoon rat that's in need of a redo."
Do you think the cast will come back for it? Patton Oswalt? Is that?
I think so.
Yeah.
He'd take the job. Of course
It's
he would.
Disney; they can afford it. They'll
Pixar money.
Get it all back, wouldn't they?
Yeah, just,
Plus, it's easy voiceover work, isn't it? Do you just sit in a booth?
I mean,
Oh.
to a degree. I mean, a lot of my voice work has been dubbing, which is genuinely hard.
Oh, yeah.
So I did. It's a German Netflix show called How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, available now worldwide on Netflix,
Right.
and it's obviously in German. And so we did the dub for all of it, and like German as a language is probably the easiest to dub into English because it is, of course, our sister tongue. But because people talk about bad dubbing all the time, and every time I hear someone say that, I'm like, you don't know how hard it is, man. Like, we really do our best to try and sort of like sync it up as best we can, but it's a different language.
Oh my god.
Like,
Yeah.
and like, we do what we can, but it's hard work. That's not what this is, I guess. I mean, I did some sort of background voices for a cartoon once, so it was less of sort of like, sort of long strips of dialogue and more like, yeah! And,
Yeah. Crowd noises.
so, that's why they hire me. I am available. So I've not really had the sort of experience of sort of like doing like a kind of full cartoon / animated feature.
Yeah.
But I mean, I imagine, because the way they did that then, they had everything storyboarded. And so I was essentially being shown like these sequence of storyboards with the dialogue written on it. So I got an idea of what they were going for visually.
Yeah.
Okay.
But obviously you kind of got to do the voice first before you do the animation, because then you've got to sync everything up and it's...
What character would you like to play in Ratatouille 2?
Oh. That's
Or
good.
Ratatouille?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Ratatouille.
I mean, okay, all right, yeah. I hadn't even thought of that.
No, it's true.
I'm nominally the comedy guy, and you've come in with the perfect sequel name, Ratatouille.
I don't care what happens in this film now. It's got a name.
I mean,
Anyway.
I'd quite like to play
A rat?
essentially the Rob Reiner character in Spinal Tap. I want to be behind the camera, just like asking stuff. I think that'd be quite a fun thing to do.
You can see the cogs in Dave's brain working now, can't you?
If anything, it should at least be one of their shorts.
That would be fine. I mean, I don't know if that's the thing. I don't know if it has enough legs to sustain a whole 90-minute feature. But a 20-minute short, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be
And
good.
there could be a sequel about
See
people
that.
actually finding it is run by rats and then trying to build the PR up again.
But in the final
Like,
sequel,
hey.
in the final sequence of that film, everyone knows that.
Yeah, everyone's accepted it, haven't they?
Yeah.
No, not they're still hidden up there, but in a different restaurant.
But it's
I
got a
reckon.
big rat on the sign.
Yeah, it's called Ratatouille. Like Ratatouille. It doesn't mean that it's run by rats.
I don't know.
I still think it's an interesting design choice. That's what you want to think about when you're going into a restaurant. Vermin. Yes. We're heading to a Mexican restaurant tomorrow, actually. The La Cucaracha.
Brilliant.
I think we should end there.
And with that...
And those were Ethan Lawrence's Unequal Sequels. What a cracking lad.
What a lovely man.
I know, right?
Totally charmed by him. Like,
Yeah, me too.
best friends
He's
now,
lovely.
right? I feel like we're all
Yeah,
best friends.
He's ace. He's such a good guy, honestly. Like, loved that. That was
So much
brilliant.
fun. Listening to About Was Edited, I was just giggling to ourselves. I was like, oh yeah, this was a good one. We had a really good time with Ethan talking about sequels and movies and just his job and stuff. It was a really lovely chat to talk to him. And thank you so much for even giving us time.
And it was really cool that he kind of hacked the questions a little bit and picked more than one movie.
Cheeky, but only you can
Yeah.
get away with that, I reckon, episode 1 of a series and maybe episode 12. Plus, we are very lenient with our answers.
And I think you can get away with it if you're really nice as well. And Ethan's really
If you come
nice
at us
and,
with
you know,
good reasons
kind of-
why.
Yeah. So like Toy Story 2 and 3
cheeky,
as a
cheeky.
choice, and also Saw 2.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like a kid's version and an adult version.
Yeah.
But the man who did like his stories about him and his friends getting together and watching all the Saws films together and stuff. He's a bookworm of Saw films. Like he knew everything we threw at him. He'd like really random stuff. It was fun. And plus
it was
it
fun.
gave you a chance to watch Saw 1 and 2.
Yes, which I didn't hate as much as I thought I would. In fact, actually, I preferred 2 to 1.
I still disagree
it's
with you
got
guys,
me
but okay.
a new sequel that I think is better than the original. So, you know, that's
Put it on
nice.
the list.
Yeah.
But I think his most controversial pick was the worst pick.
Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. However, I agreed with you. I thought that was a controversial pick. However, I've since gone back and kind of looked into it a little bit, and it's Daniel Radcliffe doesn't like it either.
Really?
Yeah, he says it's the worst one. So
Why? Have they not seen the first and second
not
ones?
happy with his performance at all.
Oh, well,
he
that is a
thinks
very-
that he was very good in the Order of the Phoenix and then really bad in this one. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that fact, Rich.
Yeah. I've been saving that for when we come and
Would
record
you say
this
it's your worst
outro.
Harry Potter film?
No, I think Chamber of Sequence is my Chamber of Sequence. Chamber. I think Chamber of Sequence.
Sequence.
Chamber of
all
Sequence. Of course, you're not going to carry this out, are you?
No, this is why people listened at the end.
I think Chamber of Secrets
Yeah.
is the worst one,
I agree with you.
which is annoying because it's my son's favourite one.
Yeah,
But that's only because he likes the big snake.
that's understandable. And then his dream picks, you know, which is one of them's kind of coming true because there's a new season of Bad Education, a new
There is,
class.
yeah.
But I have seen him on set, so I can sleep easy now because for a long while I was like, I really hope they get Ethan
Yeah.
back as Joe.
Yeah.
And I believe at some point in that series he's popping up. And then we got to talk about Ratatouille again,
We did.
which is a great, you know.
It is a great film. I love Ratatouille.
Don't know if it needs a sequel though, but
Well, you know, it's not our dream sequel. It's his dream sequel.
that is true.
And that's the whole point of this show.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. What an opening for season 4. We're off and running, Rich.
We are. It's a very, very solid season this season. We've got some incredible guests coming up. I'm really excited for you to hear them all. And if you do want to hear them all, maybe you're a big Ethan fan and you've just tuned into this one to listen to this. We've got loads of back catalogue, 3 more series for you to go back and listen to. But if you do want to catch all of season 4, make sure you click that little subscribe button. Make sure you hit the automatic download button because that means we'll drop into your little pod shop of choice every single week. You won't miss an episode, and you can also you can get in touch with us. If you think we've talked absolute nonsense and completely disagree with something we've talked about, or if you want to mention one of the movies, or we've got a fact about one of the movies we've talked about, get on social media. We are at Unequal Sequel on Twitter and Instagram. We have an email address, unequalsequel@hotmail.com, and we also have a website, unequalsequel.com. You can send us a message. Anything we get, we'll read out at the end on our monthly roundup at the end of the month. We love it when listeners get in touch and tell us what they think, so please do that. And while you're there, if you want to give us a little review, 5 stars, a heart, a tick, a like, whatever it is on your pod player, and if you can write a review, we would absolutely love it. It all helps with kind of making sure other people can find us. If you don't want to do any of that, if you haven't got time for any of that, maybe just mention us to a co-worker. Maybe just mention the sequel to go, oh, do you know what? I've got a friend that I've not seen for ages, and I know they really like movies. I'll get in touch and I'll tell him to listen to this sequel. I'll tell him to listen to this podcast. It was nearly good, Dave. It was nearly good.
Yeah, I mean, mate, you nailed that, because you haven't done an end of episode season 1 for a while, and you were just in the flow. It felt so natural.
Yeah,
but then we got caught out at the
just
end.
right at the last minute.
Yeah, I just got to reiterate, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for staying with us during the period when we don't do our bread and butter episodes. Thank you for listening to the extras. We really appreciate it. I've got nothing else to say. Rich, you got anything else to say?
Nope.
Okay, so it's a tot zins from me. That's goodbye in Dutch. And a bye-bye from him.
Bye!
See you on the other side. Hang on, that makes me feel like everyone's died. See you next time. Bye.
Please don't everyone die.
We're back.